But the story goes, and apparently it's been authenticated, is that there was about 200 and some Cathars, and majority of them were actually women, and there were quite a number, at least several dozen children, but there were also some Templar Knights there as well, because a number of the Templar Knights were trying to actually protect the Cathars from the pogroms of the church, because they were declared a heresy, and the Inquisition was established to suppress the Cathar heresy. Because the Cathars, and in fact some scholars who have studied the Cathars have said that basically the advance of Western civilization was retarded by 2 or 3 centuries at least by the suppression of the Cathars, because they were so advanced in their understanding of equality and healing and their social experimentation that they were doing was ahead of its time. And it went see, the Cathars taught that one could actually that the pathway to God was an individual thing, and it could be accomplished without going through the authoritarian hierarchy of the church. And of course, this was the worst heresy of all and had to be suppressed. So there was one, you've all heard probably the famous saying, kill them all and let God sort them out. Well, that had its origins in the destruction of the southern French city of Béziers, when I forget his name, but he was the Bishop de Montfort, if I remember right, was leading that particular pogrom, and one of the mercenary knights that he had been hired goes up and says, okay, we're going to go into the village and we're going to execute the heretics, but how do we know which ones are heretics? And he says, kill them all, God will know his own. So they went in there and basically put to sword 50,000 inhabitants, every inhabitant of the village. And then the reports that said, the streets were running with blood, up to people's ankles, because there were so many of heretics being hacked to death. Anyways, the last holdout was here, or one of the very last holdouts. And there was a siege that went on for 9 months. They surrounded Mount Segur for 9 months, 10,000 of these mercenary knights that had been hired and forgiven of all their sins in advance. And also told that in addition to that, any plunder you get can be your own. So, they had a lot of takers on that, and since their sins were being forgiven in advance. So they surrounded the mountain for about 9 months, and then at the end of 9 months, finally the Cathars, the holdout, were pretty much at the end of the rope, and they agreed to surrender, but they wanted like 2 or 3 extra days. And the night before the surrender, 4 Templars went over the sheer side of the mountain in the middle of the night, carrying something with them. And they disappeared into the Pyrenees Mountains, and nobody knows what happened to them or what it was that they were carrying with them. Some suspect it might have been, what, the very thing we're talking about here. In any case, the next morning, the 200 and some Cathars came down, they surrendered, they were herded into the stockade and burned alive. And that was pretty much most of the end of the heresy.